we're going to be starting a new series. So we've got a live show going on right now, and the new series that I will be announcing very soon on the channel, and it will be starting today. The new series is called The Enthusiast. And now we're going to be getting into this week's news. On today's show, we are going to be talking about the latest Phantom news, new comics that are coming out this week, and a lot more. So we have a new comic that's coming out last week actually. So the new comic that did come out last week on Thursday is actually the 2022 Phantom Annual. Now, with this Phantom Annual, I've got the cover art up on my screen right now, and to say this Phantom Annual from 2022 isn't all that good, it is. If you're going to be having a look at the 2022 Phantom Annual, it is an amazing cover done by Glenn Lubston. And yes, by looking at reading some of the posts, articles, and looking at the photos for this year's annual, as I did say, it is done by Glenn Lubston. And one of the big stories coming out this year is to do with the Guardian the Eastern Dark stories. So the Guardian Eastern Dark, I think the first actual story was actually published as a daily or Sunday story. And as we will be having a look through the contents of this book, as I don't already have the book myself, for this year's 2022 annual, bear with me, there's a few typos Dudley needs to check on here. So for this year's 2022 annual, we have chosen the Guardian of the Eastern Dark stories as a theme. A fantastic collection of very interesting stories, including one brand new short story by Duncan Munro and Daniel Picciotti. Now, with this annual, we've got bagged is a replica of number 32, The Sultan's Prisoner. And the first story in this book is, of course, The Guardian of the Eastern Dark, obviously. It was the 134th Phantom Daily story. The story was written by Lee Falk and drawn by good old Seymour Barry. And it had been going through April the 4th, 1962 to, I think, August the 13th. Now, with this article that obviously has been published, and I'm hoping hasn't been published in the Phantom Comics, the comic that actually came out in the last week or so, I'm very much hoping so that if they've done this, because there's a lot of typos in this article, if they've done this on in the actual book, I know a couple of times when they've actually done this, I've actually picked it up, but I haven't actually talked about it on the channel. But the other stories include The Eastern Dark. It's a 119th Phantom Sunday story by Lee Falk and drawn by Sly Barry, and that is from the August the 7th of 1983 to January the 20th, 1984. We have The Eastern Dark of Jananoia, is the 135th Phantom Sunday story. The story was written by Lee Falk and drawn by Seymour Barry, and that premiered on January the 14th, 1990, and ended in May the 30th, 1990. We have The Raiders of the Eastern Dark is the 185th Phantom Daily story. The story was written by Lee Falk and drawn by George Olson and Keith Williams. It was done on the September the 4th, 1995, and came to an end on the 6th of January, 1996. I know we have a couple more stories where there's the Dark Pirates, then 193rd Phantom Daily story, obviously written by Leigh Falk and drawn by George Olsen and Keith Williams. There is the Terror at the Opera, which when I do get my hands on this book, I will be showing you a couple of glimpses, hopefully, because right now, obviously, this comic came out back in last week on Thursday, and right now, I don't actually have a copy myself. I don't have a copy myself, and when I do get a copy, hopefully this week, I'll be able to show it on the show, probably either next Sunday, because as everyone knows, I currently, right now, as you would see in the background, there's no posters these days, there's no posters right now, and that will continue for the next, I would say, from the next couple of weeks to the next month or so, because that is because I'm obviously moving, I'm moving studios and all that sort of stuff. But we've also the Terror at the Opera. I'm hoping that's a great story. It's written by Lee and Lee and Elizabeth Falk and drawn by George Olsen and Keith Williams. That should be an interesting story. That's going to be an interesting story. Also, the news stories that have been published in the last decade are from books like the Moonstone books, Phantom Story. This story was published in 2009, and that is the Return of the Eastern Dark Part 1, Part 2. With it was written by Mark Bullock and drawn by Silvestri Zilagi. It was originally published in the Phantom Ghost Who Walks issue number 6 and number 5. And then we have a new story called The Return of the Eastern Dark Shameful Trade. But as per, I don't usually say this, but I said this earlier. We have another typo, and it is the new story is done by Frew, but on this, it's thinking that it's been written by Andrew Constant, which I don't think has, because if you have a little scroll up forwards, it actually says Duncan Monroe. So how are we supposed to know as collectors? How are we supposed to know as collectors which actual person or which actual person had actually wrote this story? If we've gone and said it's someone else's story, then the other person that's probably written it hasn't actually got that accreditation, which then if the publisher does not fix it, which I hope they do, which they probably will, it's a tough one with that because I'm not going to ramble on about it, but it's just a tough one, and plus it's just a typo. So someone it hopefully hasn't been published in the book. It's just a typo, so that will be okay. But they can obviously edit it in the website. So coming up in this week's show, we have a couple of announcements to make. We have an update on the refreshing look of our community's brand. We have new announcements this week. We have the best covers, stories, and full package is released from Chronicle Chamber and a few publications in the last week or so. So we're going to go through that. We're going to have a look at a couple of the creative people and persons behind those stories, and we also I repay my respects to a lead singer of Meatloaf who sadly passed away overnight, which was yesterday, which is quite sad, and we will get into that. And then the last thing we'll be talking about this week is the next daily story will again feature the Savannah Devi character in this new saga that is obviously going to be getting published hopefully soon in the few publications the Phantom run. I'm hopeful that when few publications actually goes and does a lot of the backup dailies, a lot of the dailies and Sundays that haven't actually been published. I I hope they actually publish those stories, because as we see every year, we see a new Christmas story. We see a new Christmas special come out, and what tends to happen with those Christmas specials? They are filled with daily and Sundays. Now, I posed a question. I'm just taking news on another route here, but I posed a question to Dudley Hogarth a couple of months ago, and it obviously it got published in the email section. It got published in the noteworthy section, which is quite okay. It's quite okay. But I asked him, why haven't we as fans been able to see daily and Sunday stories in the actual regular run of Phantom Comics, like the fortnightly ones, and why do we have to, as fans, wait for every year for the Christmas special to come out? Now, I talk to him frequently, and he's a great person, don't get me wrong, and we're going to be getting into this week's topic. So last week, I was talking about a refreshing new look for this awesome channel. Now, it's still the new look, it still will happen, but I ran a poll on Facebook, which should be that. I ran a poll on Facebook, and yeah, so I ran a poll on Facebook whether to change the old logo to a more refreshing look for the channel. I tried to change the profile picture. The channel art will be staying, like the channel art will be getting a refreshed new look in the next couple of weeks, but the original logo with the purple background and the big skull that is on there, and like my PhantomCave wording and all the text part, will be staying. I Like I said, I did a poll, and this is what fans had to say. So for the old logo version 2.0, for the old logo version 2.0, we had 21 votes for that logo. We had, for the second new 2022 logo, we had 4 votes for that, and the new original 2022 logo, we had, yeah, one vote. Good job. And we will be having more announcements like this into coming months when these things actually get changed. Whether the old logo will be staying, it will be staying as for certain, and we'll be getting into our announcements. Moving on, we have the results for the best covers, stories, and full package from Chronicle Chamber in partnership with Frew publications have been released. Some notable creative people who were included in the top results include Duncan Munro and Jeff Weigel's adapt Duncan and Munro and Jeff Weigel's story called it's like their story is, I read it. I read all 3 parts, and those all 3 parts all spanned over like 3 years. So if you have time to basically read that story and like basically collect all the free issues that actually go towards getting the full story, then you've, as a Phantom fan, as a collector, please do so, because this story, it was one of the most riveting stories that I have read in a long time, and it's one of my all-time favorites right now. Other notable mentions are people like Daniel Biccotti, which with his story in the trade paperback number 4. We've got Alex Tripp, which I think I have a couple of covers from last year to show. Obviously, we have the Orient Express from last year. We have the recent publication of Nosferatu's Revenge, which is just an awesome story. It's one of my top five favorites from 2021. We have the Rhodian Column, and we also, I think, have another cover that he had done, but that's currently away in storage. So, other notable mentions are people like Jeremy McPherson and Dean Rankin, who did a story in the back of the 2020 Christmas special, and of course, Paul Mason. So, we have new announcements. So, as of this week, and as of next week, hopefully on Sunday, we will be starting. Yes, we'll be starting a new live show, and these new live shows, I'm I'm going to be researching this week because I want it to be high quality. Two, or B, I wanted to have all these fancy things that if you have a look at, I'm going to be studying some people who are legends in the broadcasting business, and a couple of the people that I will be studying to make my live show even better than what it actually is. Um, I'm going to be dotting down some points from people like Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, and just people like that who are very likable. They're likable characters and they're likable persons in any regard, actually. And I was actually, before I actually did this live show, I was actually watching a couple of videos with Jimmy Fallon, and I would say he's one of the best people in broadcasting business, and he's one of the best people um, over in America that actually does live television, TV work for his own show, which I think is called The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. Um, and if I won't be doing a show, I will let the fans know if I won't be doing a live show through my Instagram, Facebook, and they will be through the announcement pictures. So we have a couple of production announcements to make. There will be some exciting new interviews coming soon, which I'm hoping to do a couple of interviews in the next couple of weeks, and they will be coming out hopefully in the next couple of months because I think at the end of February I will be taking a break and I will be announcing that. But that's to the end of February and early March. So we also, with the coupled with the new interviews that will be coming out in the next month or so, we also will be having new special stuff coming soon, which I obviously can't spoil to use right now. I can't tell you what's in lockdown right now. I can't tell you what is up in the Skull Cave right now. But anyways, there will be some special stuff, some new special stuff happening in the next 5 to 4 months. Lots of special stuff, new stuff. So we have a new segment we're going to be talking about today. The segment is called the Legends segment, where legends are here to be regarded as being legends. Okay, so overnight, on obviously with the passing of a beautiful and absolute beautiful singer overnight in Saturday. I reckon in Saturday, I actually heard this for the first time on I think Saturday morning, and I was very, very shocked to hear this. I was very shocked to hear this, and one of the most beautiful singers of all time unfortunately passed away, and that is the lead singer of Meatloaf. So Marvin Lee Aday, He is, I would say, one of the best all time singers and one of the best all time 80s and 70s artists and musical people that I've ever seen and I've ever listened to. So, uh, so a long time ago, probably a couple of years ago, I actually, like a couple of years ago, I started, well, not a couple of years ago, but probably a decade ago, I started listening to 80s and 90s music because one, because it's so damn good, and two, because it, it just has that vibe. It has that vibe, and you really want to listen to it. And one of the things that I get from listening to old music, old crackers, classic music I get to listen, it puts you in a good mood. It really does put you in a good mood. And you're probably wondering, why am I reporting on this? I'm reporting on this because he's one of my favorite musical people, and I just love to listen to him. So, lastly on the show, we're going to be talking about this week. I'm hearing through the jungle drums. They are saying there is going to be a new story. Who is that new story? Where, when it will come to the few publications? Ooh, ooh. It's going to be a new story, a new published daily newspaper story. Wow! That's amazing! It's a new continuation of a dramatic story involving the character called Zavana Delvey. Now, this character, as everyone would know, this character, um, in the past, I would say in the past 6 to 7 months, has really, I would say in the past 6 to 7 months, this saga involving this character with obviously the Phantom, Diana, Guren, and all the trio. This story, coupled with Mike Manley art, is just amazing. Right now, I haven't been keeping up to date. Yes, I know I haven't been keeping up to date, but that's okay. But this story, I feel like this era that we're in for Phantom fans, I really feel that this, I would say, in my opinion, looking at the art that's coming through, looking at what stories are coming through. Yes, this is one of the latest 2022 Phantom books, but looking through everything that's coming out in the next year or so, I really do think that Phantom fans have a lot to get, a lot of stories coming out, and a lot of artwork to just drool over consistently. It's just going to be so awesome when when everything comes out and you're able to amaze yourself at covers like this. Yes, covers like this. So, if you would like to support the great entertainment we're going to try and bring you every week, you can do that by subscribing, liking, sharing, and this channel is for all Phantom lovers. Like, share, comment your thoughts on the current daily saga story in the newspapers this week and for the next couple of months. And as always, as my famous sign off says, as always, keep Phantom caving. See yous and keep Phantom caving.